Transportation, Public Safety, Sanitation, and Environment Committee. Appreciate you all coming out tonight. We have 3 agenda items. We have DOT and EDC here to update us on the Chinatown Connections overview of traffic study, and we also have DOT here that's going to actually, hold on, I'm going to switch an agenda item. We also have Transportation Alternatives here that's going to give an informational presentation to us on data analytics. And then after that, we had DOT actually come here last month and gave a presentation on microhub pilot program, and we're going to talk about a resolution in support of that as the last agenda item. So with that, we'll approve last month's minutes as well as do a roll call.
Vincent Cerrito.
Here.
Nancy Kong, present. Lee Berman.
Present.
Solomon Fletcher.
Present.
Sean Garcia.
Here.
Charlie Williamson. Michelle Coopersmith, present. Judge Liao. Sherry Ryan.
Here.
David Crane.
Here.
And Al Henderson. Okay.
Great. All right. So with that, so we have for the first agenda item, I want to plan on about 30 minutes for the presentation and comments. We have speaker forms here as well. So for anybody who came in late, we have speaker forms if you'd like to speak. For folks that are joining us online, when the time comes true, if you could raise your hand, and then at that point I'll know that you'll want to speak. And what we'll do there is we'll kind of go back and forth in this room and to then folks online. But with that, welcome to DOT.
Where should I stand?
Casey, if you could stand kind of like in the front here, like that's where our microphones are.
Yeah, always the mic.
Right.
Maybe we should move it up.
Casey, is that correct?
Yes. Do Control L.
At least other way to do it up with the 3 dots or something.
It's not sharing screen or what?
We're trying to get it so it's a little bit larger.
Oh.
Just while that's being pulled up, I can give kind of a brief intro. So my name is Casey Grau. I'm from New York City Department of Transportation, and I'm going to be giving an update on the Chinatown Connections project, specifically the DOT traffic study that is being conducted in conjunction with the project in an advanced format. So we'll be going over an overview of the traffic study timeline, an overview of what is being studied, the 3 scenarios. So we'll go over schedule and timeline, an overview of the traffic study. The bulk of this presentation will be over the estimated Park Row reopening volumes, which was a key component of the study, and how a reopened Park Row would change operations at Chatham Square. So we'll go to the next slide. Just an overview of timeline. So the traffic study was scoped in spring of 2024. We did data collection in May of 2024. We completed the existing conditions analysis in September of 2024, and that was actually presented to this community board in October, I believe. So we're back to present the Park Row reopening demand analysis, which has been completed. We'll go over, in the future, we'll be completing analysis on the proposed conditions for both Park Row reopening and the Chatham Square reorganization, which is part of the larger Chinatown Connect project. The interim results of the full study will be available in April with a full technical report section. Next slide. So an overview for the Chinatown Connection project. We are looking at 3 general scenarios that are being studied as part of this. We're looking at only the Chatham Square reorganization, which is the Chinatown Connection project. We're looking at only a Park Row reopening, and then both of those combined. The study is looking at vehicular, bicycle, and pedestrian counts. It's looking at travel time and travel speeds, parking and loading, changes in travel patterns under a Park Row reopening scenario, and changes in conflict points between modes of travel for both the Park Row reopening scenario and the Chatham Square reopening. Just for context, the study provides data and context for decision making, but doesn't have like an output at the end of the traffic study saying do this or do that. It's just for data and for conversation. So we'll go to the next slide. So the traffic study, we conducted a Park Row volume assumptions analysis. So we worked with our consultant team to estimate the number of vehicles who would use Park Row if it was to reopen traffic. Just for reference, this was under the assumption that it would be a 24/7 reopening. There'd be no vehicular restrictions. Today, it currently operates for emergency access, NYPD authorized access, and then pedestrian and bicycles, as well as PT buses. The data sources we used, due to the time since Park Row has been closed, were fairly limited, so we used the 2006 One Police Plaza Security EIS. In that EIS, there is a pre-closure volume data plan, which used a variety of data sources at that time to show what the pre-closure volume data was. We also looked at kind of current origin and destination data at a more kind of neighborhood scale, as well as the DOT Lower Manhattan Network traffic model. This is a traffic model that is from Houston south, so it's the entire lower portion of Manhattan. And it's a kind of 1,000-foot scale traffic model where you can essentially turn on and off streets, and it will redirect traffic volume throughout the entire Lower Manhattan network. We'll go to the next slide. So just for our process, what we did is we modeled a reopened Park Row in the AM and PM condition during the work week through the Manhattan network model. We determined changes in volumes based off of percentages of where traffic would move if you were to reopen Park Row. We applied those changes to the data we collected in 2024, so this is all using the May 2024 data and then changing it if you were to reopen Park Row. We then compared those volumes to the One Police Plaza EIS just as kind of a bit of a gut check to make sure that we were matching what we saw in the EIS, which was pre-closure data, and then we developed our final traffic flow maps.
I'm sorry, can you keep your voice up?
Sorry, that's talking to two sides of the room. We'll go to the next slide. So we looked at a neighborhood level of origin and destinations for Park Row. I think one kind of logical assumption is if Park Row was reopened, we would see a reduced amount of volume on St. James Place. When we looked at the actual street network and the Lower Manhattan network model, we actually discovered that a lot of the trips on St. James are there because it's the shortest destination. If you were to reopen Park Row, a lot of traffic would have to flow through Beekman Street, which is really the only way to get to a reopened Park Row from the parts of the seaport and Lower Manhattan, which would actually increase travel times for those people. So we don't assume that a lot of people from that area of Lower Manhattan would use a reopened Park Row. They would continue to use St. James Place. We'll go to the next slide. The bulk of traffic that we think would reuse a reopened Park Row would actually be coming from the west side of Lower Manhattan. So it's coming from the Battery Tunnel and potentially West Street coming from the north. Those are vehicles and drivers and trips that would see a reduced travel time or an opportunity to use a reopened Park Row because it would drastically shorten or potentially shorten their trips where they're currently using what's shown in blue, kind of the stratified grid networks. We also, using the existing origin destination data, currently 50% of traffic going through Chatham Square is not destined for Chinatown. We assumed that percentage would be similar for these new trips on Park Row, that potentially 50% of new trips on Park Row would also not be destined for Chinatown. Next slide, please. This is, very small at this scale. We looked at the total number of vehicles in Chatham Square today. Currently, there are 1,360 vehicles in Pre-closure, there was 1,920 vehicles, so a pretty substantial increase pre-closure of the vehicles in the square. From the pre-closure data to May 2024, volumes decreased on Bowery, so when Park Row was closed, trips on Bowery were reduced. The northbound St. James and East Broadway approaches at the square are the same, so there's no change to traffic volume on St. James or East Broadway when Park Row was closed. This is using the EIS data and the 2024 data. And westbound Worth Street and southbound St. James are significantly higher post-closure. We'll go to the next slide. We then looked at the projected volumes for Park Row as we reopened. So pre-closure, there was 1,920 cars in Kinloch Square. In May 2024, there was 1,360. In the projection, we see approximately 1,975, so approaching 2,000 vehicles in the square. So basically back up to the pre-closure volumes. This represents a 45% increase in traffic in the square. We see an increased volume on East Broadway, heading away from Kinloch Square. The Lower Manhattan Network model saw that there was a lot of traffic coming on a reopened Park Road who would use East Broadway to get to points to the east, specifically the Lower East Side. We saw minimal changes to the volumes on St. James Place and Worth Street. And the volume on Park Row, which I'll read out loud just for those who can't see, we're projecting 275 vehicles in the southbound direction, 440 vehicles in the northbound direction. That is similar to the volumes on 34th Street near Penn Station. One of the biggest things that DOT is concerned about with a potential reopening of Park Row is any changes in conflict points between different modes. So safety is a big important part of DOT's mission. So we're always looking at how a change impacts other roadway users. So we first looked at the changes to pedestrian interactions between vehicles. Reopening Park Row would introduce new turning conflicts in two crosswalks that are currently conflict-free. So today, pedestrians are crossing crosswalks where they have no conflict with turning vehicles. A reopened Park Row would introduce conflicts in those crosswalks. Those are circled in red, so those crosswalks across Worth Street on the western side of the square at the intersection of of Bowery and Worth Street, and also the southern crosswalk across Park Row, which currently is conflict-free. If Park Row was reopened to vehicles, 35% of pedestrians in the square would be crossing in conflict-free crossings. Today, 61% of pedestrians are crossing conflict-free in the square. We also would see several crosswalks in the square see an increase in the number of vehicle conflicts, specifically on the eastern side as vehicles are coming on Park Row and turning. They would be turning across crosswalks that have a lower volume today, so specifically across the St. James Oliver intersection on the southeast corner of the intersection, and the crosswalk across East Broadway. We see an increased number of vehicles turning and crossing. We'll go to the next slide. We also wanted to model what this meant for bus riders. Currently, buses are allowed on Park Row and essentially have a conflict-free, almost a busway because there's very limited vehicle traffic on Park Row, so they see very fast travel times on the corridor. Reintroducing traffic to Park Row would increase the amount of delay for buses because there's more vehicles for buses to compete with. We see a large increase in delay for the northbound M103 and M9 on Park Row, about 60 seconds of delay for bus passengers on that trip. We also see a large increase in delay for eastbound buses, the M9 turning onto East Broadway. That's a big new flow of cars who are coming off Park Road to go on East Broadway to head to points east, who would now also be competing with buses to make that turn. That's about 150 seconds of delay. We saw a medium increase in delay for northbound buses heading on Bowery, 20 seconds, and then a very minor or a negligent delay for buses that M22 on East Broadway heading to Bowery, plus 10 seconds. Next slide. We then wanted to know what happens to with a reopened Park Road to other drivers. So there's a lot of, it's a very complex intersection today. I don't think anyone would say that the intersection is functioning perfectly. Adding more traffic does just increase more conflicts between other drivers. So we looked at vehicular queues, which is the number of cars who are sitting at a red light at the intersection. This is kind of like good stand-in for what people view as congestion. We saw no changes in queuing on But we did see a significant increase of queuing on Park Row, which is to be expected. You're introducing traffic, of course there's going to be reduced queuing, but it's pretty significant. It's 22 cars who would be waiting at every signal cycle on Park Row, without any changes to most of the other approaches. We'll go to the next slide. So just in summary, traffic volumes on a reopened Park Row would resemble 34th Street, just for context. It's about 470 vehicles in the northbound direction, over 200 vehicles in the southbound direction. This increases the total amount of traffic in Chatham Square by 45%. For pedestrians, the number of conflict points and the total number of conflicts between vehicles and pedestrians would increase in Chatham Square. Bus riders would experience longer delays and longer journey times and potentially less reliable service. And to some extent, car drivers would also experience some longer queues or potentially greater congestion in the square because you're introducing new vehicles into limited roadways within the square. Next slide. Just an update for the timeline. So we've completed the reopening vehicle demand analysis. We're then moving into modeling the proposed Chinatown Connections Chatham Square reorganization, and then the full results will report from the study. That is it.
Great. All right. Thanks, Casey. I appreciate it. And I think EDC, you're going to have a presentation on the larger project too. Is that correct? Okay. Great. And so I think, and I guess I probably should have given some thought to this first too, because there was a lot of decisions made on Park Row by the mayor. Are you going to be talking about that, Gigi?
I think as questions come up, we can tag team on them, but
Okay.
for CB1, we took questions related to the traffic study, and then we did general update afterwards.
Okay. All right. Great. So yes, so we'll follow that lead, and we'll do any questions. I know folks here talked about Park Row, so if you want to have your speaker forms, if you want to speak to that, which I'm going to go through the committee first here. But if I call on your name and you want to speak to both, afterwards when EDC presents, you can just hold on and say I want to speak at the end. But before I go to the public, just wanted to open up to the committee for any questions. Michelle.
Thanks. What are the next steps now, I guess is my question.
For the traffic study, for the project, or
Project.
Gigi will probably cover that. She has a whole timeline, so I think that'll be better covered in the next presentation.
Yeah, and I guess to that point is that what we wanted to do with the community board 3 here is that back in October, Casey came, gave a presentation of a lot of the raw material, the raw data that they used, and the community actually never got to see the results of that. So this is the opportunity for the community to see the results of that traffic study that DOT spent a lot of time and effort on, I think. And so we wanted to make sure that everybody in the community was able to see all the information. And so that's why we asked DOT to come here tonight. Anybody else in the committee would like to speak?
I think it actually might be beneficial to hear from EDC, and then I feel that
I feel the same way.
We can do that. That's fine.
Yeah.
JR is going to present, so you can pull up the EDC
Great.
slides, and then we can do that. And
Excellent.
you can take all the questions together.
Is that the right one?
It is. I'm sorry, my brain was still in last year. I writing 2024 on that first slide. Other than that, everything is up to date.
That happens. It is March, but
The second slide is 25, I promise. Great. So my name is J.R. Reed. I'm a senior project manager on the neighborhood strategies team, which is in the planning division at EDC, which is the New York City Economic Development Corporation. We're playing a role along with Gigi in the government and community relations team on the Chinatown Connections project. And so we wanted to talk to you today mostly about 2 items. One is kind of a brief introduction to Marvel, which is the prime consultant on board now for the redesign of Chatham Square. And then also just talk through some of the important next steps on engagement and kind of an upcoming public workshop that we have at the end of the month where we're hoping to get a lot of feedback from residents and other stakeholders on the next phase of this project. Marble and the Kim Lau Square redesign. Go to the next slide. So Marble is a multidisciplinary architecture, design, and planning firm that has a presence in locations around the world, but also has a very strong presence in New York City. And it's done a lot of different projects here, including, you can see the top right image on that screen is the Union Square Vision Plan. And they have just a lot of different experience that we're excited to bring them onto the project for. And that is what we're really here today to do, is kind of announce that they've officially been onboarded to the Chinatown Connections team, and they are going to, again, be kind of leading the design of this kind of reimagined, re-envisioned Kim Lau Square. We can go to the next slide. So we thought this was going to be helpful to show just kind of an organizational chart of where Marble sits in relation to the rest of the city family. So again, Marble is the prime consultant. They're going to be overseen by EDC, which is kind of managing their contract, but kind of in an interesting way in which kind of city government functions work. We're technically, the client on this is DOT, and they can probably explain better than I can exactly how that works. But all of that to say that DOT will be an important kind of partner in this work, as well as those other agency stakeholders that you see on the left side of the screen, namely the Department of Cultural Affairs, Parks, as well as the NYPD. And then just this is also a way to note that City Hall will continue to provide input and be thought partners in this endeavor as well. And then I just want to hang on the bottom of this org chart too to highlight that, so Marble is the main consulting group, but their work kind of falls into these three buckets. The first is public engagement, and that's going to really be spearheaded by Public Works Partners. And that's an important one to hang on for a second, because Public Works Partners has also been the main consultant on the engagement side for the pre-design engagement phase, which has basically been going on since the project was announced in spring of last year. So there's some nice continuity there, and they'll be continuing to lead engagement in partnership with EDC and the other agencies. That second bucket, design, really kind of the meat of the work, is going to be led by Marble, and then also supported by Fu Wilmer's Design, which is another important piece of continuity, because they were also part of the pre-design engagement consultant team, so there's some good kind of background and continuity.
Recording in progress.
Great. Sorry, yeah. So the second bucket, Marble, again, Fu Wilmer's Design has some experience from the previous phase of the project. And then third, there's obviously going to be a big engineering component in terms of site investigations and figuring out what really works in terms of reorganizing this square, and that'll be led by Stantec. So just a sense of kind of the project team that's coming in. We can go to the next slide. And I want to preface this by saying this is a very preliminary draft timeline, but to some of the questions I think that were asked at the end of Casey's presentation, just kind of want to give folks kind of a broad sense of kind of the next steps, as again, we're entering this new phase of the project. So you can see kind of the design phases split up into kind of the four typical ones that these types of projects fall under. We see those as lasting until about mid to late 2026, with actual construction of this redesign intersection not really happening until the start of 2027. I think most importantly, as I've been saying, engagement's going to be an important part of all of these phases, and we're working right now with Marble and our capital team to figure out exactly what that engagement's going to look like, but it will include both in-person and virtual forms. So we will have continued engagement with the...
Oh, it's muted, so people on Zoom couldn't hear.
I don't know.
Okay, how long has it been muted?
Like a minute, I just
Oh.
came down.
Okay,
Oh, thank you
that's
so
good news.
much.
Okay. Okay, so for folks who haven't heard that online, preliminary timeline, 4 phases of design, construction starting in 2027 as we currently envision it. Engagement's going to be an important part of all of these phases. We're going to have both virtual and in person, so we'll have continued engagement with the Chinatown Connections working group. We'll have tabling at important community meetings. We'll have community wide events at schools and community centers and senior centers, as we've done during the pre-design engagement phase, and which we'll be doing again at the end of March for this next public workshop. And then also we're thinking through those virtual formats, whether it's a survey or other forms, but also the Marble team and we will be kind of canvassing folks for what's going to work best for engagement on this project. So that's kind of the overview of where we are, again, in terms of kind of ushering in the redesign phase of the project, and then just want to kind of run through some of the next steps and milestones in engagement. So here you're looking at kind of the last month and then the kind of the next 3 months. So we had a Chinatown Connections community working group meeting last month. Also met with the subgroup specifically working on the Welcome Gateway part of the project. And then highlighted here, we're giving project updates to Community Board 1 and Community Board 3. Later this month we'll have another subgroup meeting, and then that big public workshop at the end of the month. And this is kind of showing the transition also from the pre-design to the design phase of the project, because starting in April and May, as we're talking about, we're going to be sketching out these new engagement opportunities with Marble and kind of TBD what exactly those will look like. Go to the next slide. So public workshop number 2. It's number 2 because we had a first one, which folks in this room might remember, back in June of last year at the Alfred E. Smith House's Senior Center. And it's going to follow a similar format to that, but our goals are to introduce the Chinatown Connection design team, Marble, kind of similar, kind of a more fleshed out version of what I just did, kind of preview the timeline, the engagement approach, and this year, once we kind of have that kind of more firm. Share findings from public engagement to date. We've been doing a lot of engagement again since spring of last year. And then also provide some project updates on kind of Chatham Square, what the initial site investigations are saying, also just some kind of the preliminary work that Marble's done. We will have a condensed version of kind of what Casey just presented on the DOT traffic study, and then also kind of highlight all of the work that DOT has been doing on street improvement projects, or SIPs, along Park Row and in the area. And then we also want to specifically kind of solicit input from folks who attend that meeting on the design of the Welcome Gateway, and then also potential additional improvements on Park Row beyond the SIP work that's already been done. We can go to the next slide. And this is kind of more just like logistics. So again, it's going to follow the format of the first public workshop in that it will be an open house, kind of science fair style, if that resonates with folks in the room. And there will be interpretation services, both for Mandarin and Cantonese. And just as I was mentioning, multiple opportunities for community feedback. It will be on Saturday, March 29th at PS1, which is right around the corner from Chatham Square. Most folks here probably know that. And it's going to be from 12 to 2. And we are kind of really right now starting like a big marketing push for that, to get the word out to folks, including placing some ads in local outlets. I think that might be the last slide. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks again, and apologize for folks online if you couldn't hear that about a minute worth of audio. So just I guess a broad kind of overview, and I guess just I would like to say, is this correct? And I guess the broad overview, right, is that we have 2 pots of funding. We have Chatham Square, which is a fully funded capital project of $55 million, and that is Chatham Square, kind of in Ward Street, Bowery, Chatham Street, and East Broadway, that intersection in the Plaza, right? And then we have, and of that some state money associated with that $55 million. What is the difference? I think there's state money and then there's city money.
11.5 million in state money.
11.5 million in state money, and then the rest of it is 55, up to 55 million. And then Park Row, which we heard with the traffic study, that has $4 million in state money that's there allocated for capital funding. The city has spent their own expense money doing the artwork and some of the restriping and those types of things. That's more or less complete along Park Row. Outside of that $4 million, that $4 million is just sitting there at the moment. Okay. And so traffic study was completed because DOT is looking at, that obviously it's a very complicated traffic scenario, so just kind of understanding that, and then the opening and the closing of Park Row, that type of thing, or keeping it as is with emergency vehicles and buses and vehicles and, buses, emergency vehicles, bicycles and pedestrians having access along Park Row. You need to understand that to be able to kind of move the $55 million project forward. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And then I know I was at the Chinatown Connections workshop in February, and I had presented actually at Community Board 3's full board meeting last month. What I heard, and at that meeting, the chief of the public realm was there representing City Hall, and more or less told the Chinatown Connections group that Park Row would remain as is, and that decision was made at the City Hall level that Park Row would remain as is. So buses, emergency vehicles, bicycles, and pedestrians, more or less the access that is there today would have it. And then they also mentioned that the NYPD vehicles that are parked there on the east side would be moved to the west side of Park Row, opening up possibilities of doing some more with the pedestrian realm, I guess, on the east side of Park Row. Okay. And so I state all that because it's a lot. I think it's a lot for this community that's been here since 2020, and I understand that there's been a lot of history here, and so I just really wanted to make sure I give that context of the most recent what's come. I mean, I think the most recent history of here, why we're all here today, and then the presentation that I appreciate that EDC just gave is more or less talking about the Chatham Square project now that is moving forward, and we'll see what's going to come of that, and appreciate all the public outreach with workshops and all those types of things. And so I guess this community board will see more of that at this committee meeting as that moves forward in design, but right now it's really the public's time to kind of work with you, and we're here to support that. So with that, I want to open it back up just to the committee for any questions associated with the transportation study as well as the Chatham Square project. Oh yeah, what happened to you?
Well, during the presentation, it
Thanks
was
for
nice.
showing. Let there be lights.
I think we're better off with the lawn, it's too noisy. Oh,
It's the shade. Well, we get to look at beautiful landscape behind us, I guess, right? David, did you have anything else?
that was.
No.
I have a question. It's certainly very noisy. I don't know if we could
Still going, we're almost done.
yeah, just give it a second, so.
Sure.
There you go.
Just to confirm, you were at a meeting a few months ago here, and you presented the traffic study, right?
Yeah, it was in existing conditions.
Oh, and existing conditions, okay. And the main addition that you presented here tonight is that you estimated the volumes on Park Row?
Correct, yeah.
Okay, so then you're gonna take those volumes and do the alternatives modeling?
That was like partially done, not like a full in-depth modeling. We're still working on that. So this is some of the preliminary analysis from the modeling of the Park Row reopening, but we did apply that to the existing conditions. So the delayed buses, the changes in
Okay.
pedestrian operations, the
Oh,
vehicles,
got it,
that
got
all
it,
is
got
like,
it. Okay,
we're gonna do like a full kind of analysis.
Okay.
It'll be very similar.
of the three different kind of
Correct.
network alternatives, okay. And then, you didn't mention who the consultant was for the transportation stuff, but.
Yeah, it's our DOT in-house contract, so it's AECom.
Oh, thanks.
Michelle?
I guess I still have my same question basically, which is that now that you're gonna start with these visioning sessions, et cetera, will that be both for the $55 million pot for Kinlow Square and the $4 million pot for Park Row, or is it one of the, just the Kinlow?
I'm happy to take it. I think we are soliciting input for everything. So it's the three pots are, the redesign, the gateway, and then Park Row.
Okay. And, okay. And are you still actively seeking more money for the Park Row portion of it? Because $4 million doesn't seem like a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I think actively seeking is an optimistic,
In our current climate, yeah.
interpretation given the current climate.
Yeah.
But yes, I mean, I think that if there are funding streams that any of the agencies or City Hall thinks is a right fit, that is something that, we would welcome. My understanding is that there are none right now.
That's not surprising. Okay, thank you for clarifying.
So just to follow up on that, so the input meetings, so the workshop meetings, they will take input on Kinlow Square, the Gateway, and also Park Row. So input's one thing. What are they going to design? So is it designing?
Yeah, so I think, we always start from a place of community engagement first to understand folks, how they use it, sort of what their aspirations are for the space, what they think, a larger, possible pedestrian gathering place, how it could be designed, and those will all kind of be funneled through to the design team to think about and structure engagement around coming through with a conceptual design, and then there will be engagement again at conceptual, right? And then we'll say, based on your feedback of how folks use this space, what the community wants to see, and then we'll progress it all the way up through, also understanding at the same time what the engineering constraints are, right? We all live in one of the oldest sections of the city and in Manhattan, and there are a lot of substructure, things we can't see, challenges underneath, where that is going to be a very substantial part of the next year for the engineering team. We know something is happening because the Kinlow Memorial Arch is cracking and it continues to crack. So we know that there are things we need to learn and document and take into consideration around engineering and structural constraints before we do any digging, which is why we're saying these next 2 years is about listen, learn, and incorporate all of that into a conceptual design.
Gotcha. Okay.
You mentioned that you start out from a place of community engagement.
Sure.
So when you engage the community and the community expresses their desire that Park Row be reopened completely, how are you going to get that accomplished with what has come from City Hall when the overwhelming desire and voices from the community are we need Park Row open?
Yeah, I mean, I want to be explicit that whether or not to reopen Park Row was a decision made at the mayoral level. At one of the Chinatown Connections working group meetings, there was a briefing from the Deputy Inspector of Counterterrorism there, and they gave a presentation on some of the factors requests from the community. We certainly heard, and they're a very well-organized group, some of their concerns and requests. And there are also some folks from the other side that say we are concerned with it reopening for, their own reasons. So, we all know, having been on the community board, rarely a unanimous, position on an issue, right? And so I think we took about 4 to 5 months stepping away from the project to allow that process to happen. And the mayor made a decision, and that's the mayor's decision. We promised we would do a traffic study with different scenarios. DOT is honoring that commitment and will continue to do that and share the results. And we understand that it's still a contentious issue, but we can't stop doing our work. We do have a timeline for drawing down the state money. And, if the government stopped every time there was a contentious or disagreement on an issue, nothing would ever get done, right? And I think we're still aware. We get outreach. We try to respond to the best of our ability to their concerns. But the mayor made a decision.
And just to follow up on that, do you happen to know if the counterterrorism report or analysis that was done, was that still based on the 2006 analysis, or was that updated? And did it also take into consideration the fact that MCC is now closed, and it's also possible, I think as some of us may have heard over the last week, that the U.S. Attorney's Office, for example, that building may be sold or no longer the U.S. Attorney's Office, which might shift at least a portion of this a safety concern.
Yeah, look, I can't speak for NYPD counterterrorism. I can say that elected officials also got briefings before we gave that a similar briefing to the working group members. And one of the very significant concerns was actually from the courthouses, because they actually see and hold very sensitive cases at the very highest level, from organized crime to drug cartels, and that despite Manhattan, the correctional center not being in operation right now, there are still many federal uses that are high level priority. They also share that some of those buildings are older and they don't have setbacks compared to, for example, some newer buildings that are built that also factor into the safety. And I think there was also an argument about, that this community is the only community that has this kind of road closure. And there was a full list of other locations, a lot in downtown Brooklyn, around the downtown, the courthouse in downtown Brooklyn, and Cadman Plaza are now also no vehicle. We certainly know after 9/11, Stock Exchange around 9/11, Broad Street, Empire State Building, Rockefeller Center. We know that many areas that are high sensitive locations also don't have cars. And so, I think we try to be responsive to some of the questions and concerns that were raised by this group. I should also share that both of the main groups that have formed this new opposition are part of our working group. So they continue to get the information, with all of Community Board 1 and Community Board 3 at the same time, and have access to all of us at the same rate, if not more, than everyone else. So there is an effort to be responsive.
Thank you.
Yep.
Dude.
So I have a question about the funding. This is particular, from my notes, I was at the last work committee meeting, the subcommittee that I was there last month. It says, my notes, $55 million for Chatham Square is an offer from the state for reimbursing project costs within 5 years of a contract being signed. Could you, what is project being signed? Where is that in the timeline, do you think, and how long have to happen by before, let's say, the 55 million came in?
Yeah, so that is the ideal timeline for drawing down department downtown revitalization initiative money, which is the 11.5 million, right? So there is a contract that will be signed, or I'm not sure exactly if it has a different department, between EDC and the state, right? That says what we can draw, how, when, what percentage we can draw down of that 11.5 million. The rest is DOT capital dollars, so that's city money. My sense is that people who are smarter with contracts than I am will draw down as much state money first as possible before, to not miss out on the state money. However, we've also been told by the state that it is not a cutoff like December 31st of the end of that fourth year that the money disappears. It is more of a you have to show significant progress, and I will say that it is noted by the Department of State, because they do these downtown revitalization initiatives throughout the state, that city projects typically do take longer, and it's just because of the complexities, versus some of the smaller townships or counties upstate. And so they work, Jeanette is our liaison from the Department of State. We work really closely with her. You'll see her at these meetings. It's really so that if she sees progress, and that we're not just like sitting on our hands and not doing anything. So I just want to be clear again, I think there's been this misinformation around like, if we hit year 5, the money just vanishes. That's not the case.
Okay, so the contracting side is something that's going on between city and EDC. It's not rebidding thing that would happen in late next year. It's not after that. Okay, got it.
Great.
Great. Anybody else in the committee? Okay, going to go to the public now. Folks online, thank you for joining us here tonight. If you can put your hand up, and I will call on you, but we're going to first start here in the room. And I have Howard Huell. Hi, Howard. I'm sorry, we're going to give everyone about 2 minutes to speak. And so I'll just time you here, and I'll try not to interrupt you when you're speaking, but if you could just kind of keep to 2 minutes, I'll give you
Parkway was designed as a thoroughfare connecting Chinatown and Lower Manhattan. Why is your analysis ignoring this fundamental purpose? The closure has eliminated a major artery through downtown and connects into Chatham Square Circle. That's an important question. Why doesn't your study address reopening the Brooklyn Bridge exit ramp to Park Row? Has there been an official decision to permanently close this critical access point? This connection is essential for bringing Brooklyn traffic and uptown traffic to Chinatown and Lower Manhattan. Another question, you're making vague statements like the majority of people who would use reopen Park Row, you're assuming coming from backup. That's based on, you said it would be a 40% increase in traffic if Park Row was open. Can we see the data where that data's coming from? Also, you just cited data from 2007. There was another study by Meacham, I think. Ketchum. And, was that study, was data from that study used in any of the traffic studies?
Which was in response to the city's EIS. That was 2007 study is referenced, but that's a long time.
We got to keep going. I'm sorry.
And also, Park Row's been closed since 2007, 2008. And all during that time, they just closed Park Row, ignoring the economic impact of Chinatown. Why hasn't NYPD or DOT done something to mitigate the safety concerns, the security concerns? You have places like Penn Station and Madison Square Garden. There's traffic on 8th Avenue, there's traffic on 7th Avenue. Meanwhile, that's a major railroad and entertainment thing, and that's got to be a big target. The traffic still goes there because they have mitigation of security concerns. And why hasn't that happened in Chinatown?
Thanks, Howard.
Yeah, there's quite a few questions, so I gotta go through them one by one. I think to your question about why Park Row is not considered as an artery, I think our reopening volume assumption did consider it an artery. I mean, 400 vehicles in a peak hour is a lot of vehicles, especially in Lower Manhattan. So I think show that a lot of vehicles would use it. To the question about the Brooklyn Bridge ramp, that was not a part of this traffic study because it was not a director from City Hall to study. The question of study was reopening Park Row, so we only focus on reopening Park Row. The ramp was not under consideration at that time. To your question about the other study that was done, we looked at the other study that was done in response to the EIS. The bulk of that study was countering the findings of the EIS, not the original data points. So it really only looked at the 1PP results of the EIS. We only used one part of that EIS for reference.
Were those studies valid then? If the counter points to 2007?
So we didn't do an analysis of the counter study because it only was focusing on the decision to close Park Row. It didn't have any extra data for the existing conditions. It was only in response to the findings of the EIS, which this traffic study is not reopening that EIS. That's not what this was scoped to do. It's not to say that that study wasn't valid. It was in response to the decision by NYPD to close Park Row. That was what that study was for. To the question about security, I'm not from NYPD counterterrorism. I can't speak to why there hasn't been additional work done on Park Row in conjunction or compared to other locations. It's not my area of expertise, and I can't answer.
I have one last.
I'm sorry, we need to go. There's plenty of other people that want to have their voices here too, and also answered. So we got to keep moving. We have other agenda items, so I'm just going to keep moving. Al?
Can I suggest that you stand by the owl, because that's the microphone?
Val, thank you.
That's fine.
Just want to read off two questions that I have on my phone here. Has the DOT considered reinstating the M101 and M102 bus routes to use Park Road? This would significantly improve public transportation access. We're wondering, was it only cut off because Park Road being closed, or is it because there just wasn't enough ridership to warrant keeping the routes there? So I don't know if that's a question for you or for the NTA.
I'll just briefly answer. Yeah, the bus routes are all managed by MTA, so we have no control of bus routing. We just manage the bus stops.
Okay. Your summary appears designed to lead us to a predetermined conclusion that reopening Park Row is negative. How do you respond to the criticism that this study seems biased against restoring it to the way it was?
So I think in response to that question, we are at top most concerned about safety. So that's why we have the whole analysis about pedestrian changes. So we always look at how a change will impact our most vulnerable road users. So that's one slide. We also look at how something will change for transit users. Transit users are typically lower income, so also kind of a different type of vulnerable community. So we look at how it would impact that. I would say that the traffic study analysis is not necessarily negative. It's just showing some of the impacts to other roadway users, but also does show how it also would increase traffic, which is not really a negative or positive. It's just a number, and then it's up to individual people to decide if that's a good or bad thing.
You have about 25 seconds.
Okay. You defined conflict-free on Worth Street, despite showing cars cutting across from St. James and from the Bowery. How is this conflict-free? Simply because it's fewer than 10 cars per 2 light cycles.
So the crosswalk across Worth Street, when the pedestrian signal is lit, the only movement that's allowed at the same time is Mott Street, which has a very low volume turning onto Worth Street. So we consider that a nearly conflict-free crossing. St. James and other movements have a red light when that crosswalk is lit.
One more question.
Okay. You claim that queuing on Park Row comes from red lights rather than the narrowing to a single lane at the bus island. This defies basic traffic engineering principles. Can you please provide evidence for the counterintuitive conclusion?
So the majority of queuing seen citywide is at red lights. The signal timing at the intersection is very concentrated so it's a multi-phase, it's 3 phases, 4 phases. So there's a lot of red light periods, so that is what causes the buildup. If you were to widen the roadway, you would see a potentially reduced queue volume, but it would actually be relatively small because the amount of extra lane space, because of the security infrastructure, it would only be a couple cars. So it would be slightly reduced, but not drastic.
Thanks, Al. Catherine Freed?
Okay. I'd like to make a clarification if I could. I spent 15 of the last 20 years at those courthouses. And 100 Center Street, which is where the criminal court is right up against the sidewalk. 80 Center Street is right up against Worth Street. 500 Pearl Street, which is actually where most of the drug cases are held, is literally on top of Worth Street. None of those buildings are protected. So I think the idea that, showing this as an area that has to be protected and using the courts as a reason misses the point that most of the courts are not protected. I just wanted to make that clarification. As far as this, I have a question. When you did the survey of the cars coming through the area, was that before or after the traffic island was put in Park Row and before it was reconfigured? Because the new configuration slows everything down, and the traffic island itself, or the bus island, has been an immense problem for the residents to try and get on it. We've had one elderly woman have broken knees from it, and I'm curious to know if that was part, when you did the survey, if that was part of it.
No, the survey data would have come from before the island was installed, but we don't foresee it having any impacts because no vehicles are using Park Road today, so it wouldn't have
Well,
impacted
even the
trips
buses
outside
can't
of
get
that.
through there. The articulated bus, the 103, has a huge problem trying to get by the police box, where the station is. And I just wanted to also point out that I didn't hear much about Oliver Street. I come in from the east side, and Oliver Street is a parking lot. And there's a huge queuing there, and part of that is because it has to go across Park Row, it has to go across East Broadway, all of that, as well as all the other cars coming down there. So I just don't understand how you wouldn't think that opening Park Row would be an escape valve to allow traffic to move more quickly, especially since it was designed that way. When the whole area was designed, Park Row was essentially a valuable part of the traffic system, and it allowed a lot of cars to go through there. And one of the problems, particularly for Chinatown, and particularly for the businesses, is that people literally get tired of coming to the area because it gets so backed up, because it's so difficult that people are discouraged. And by keeping it at the configuration it is right now, it is an immense problem for the businesses and even people who just want to come in and visit relatives, on top of which the Metropolitan Garage that was open at 400 parking spaces. The police department now has that since before 9/11, since 93 when the first bomb was. And that they've never,
Catherine, 20 more seconds.
there's never been a replacement, and the irony is that was put there because of the jail. The community got the original jail, and the trade-off was they would get the public parking spaces, so now they don't have Park Row open, they don't have the parking, and the city hasn't even looked into replacing it, and they really should do an economic survey to see what kind of impact it is having on the community, because between the jail being built, between COVID, between now congestion pricing, the entire area is economically dying, and I'd like to hear some thought about that, or about some economic impact.
Thank you, Catherine, thank you.
Just to the Oliver Street question, as part of our analysis, we didn't foresee any changes to the volume on Oliver Street. So all those vehicles would still be on Oliver Street and still have to go through the same intersection configuration. Even if Park Row was reopened, they would still get the same amount of green time. It would be the same kind of configuration as today. We don't see any vehicle traffic diverting from Oliver Street because you would still be forced to either St. James to head up. You would still have to go through Oliver Street across to Worth to get onto Park Road when it was reopened. So you're still going through the same bottleneck. To the point about the reorganization, I think we do do see the Kinloss Square reorganization as an opportunity to increase economic vitality in Chinatown. We've seen citywide pedestrianization, a focus on pedestrian trips, increase economic vitality. We've seen it on Doyer Street as part of our Open Streets and Plazas initiatives. We've seen it in other locations, and DOT has multiple reports supporting this endeavor. So we do see this as an increase for the economic vitality. As for the parking garage, I can't really comment to that because it was not really a DOT decision.
All right, thanks. We have one person, I have two more in tier, but I'm just going to go to our guests that have joined us online. Yeah, so Eric, I'm going to allow you to speak, and for everyone else on here, if you want to speak, you have to put your hand up. Right now I only have one person. Eric, your hand up, and allow you to speak now. Eric, if you could unmute yourself, thanks.
Oh, I didn't need to raise my hand. My apologies.
All right, Eric. Well, nice to hear it from you.
That's it? That's it? Okay.
I don't know why. Okay. All right. Again, for anyone online that wants to speak, please put your hand up. It's down at the bottom on Zoom, and then we'll call on you. I have Eleanor Wong. Hi, Eleanor. If you could just come on up so we could make sure we all hear.
No, the microphone's here.
Yeah, we just want to make sure that it's recorded and also the folks online get to hear what you have to say.
Yeah.
Question about the bus island. If you have to raise the bus island to 11 inches to compensate for the road slope, doesn't this indicate the location was fundamentally unsuitable for a bus island? You have prioritized bike lane protection over the safety of pedestrians and bus riders, who must navigate an unusually high curve and cross the two-way bike lanes. You stated the bus island top is ADA compliant, but what about its 11-inch height? Standard curb height is 6 inches. How can you claim ADA compliance when buses must kneel to 5 inches at a substandard curb height? The online copy of the Chinatown Commercial District Needs Assessment Report produced by Department of Small Business Service, Chinatown Partnership, and Serve Chinatown, and based on more than 740 surveys and various shareholders meetings with neighborhood merchants, shoppers, street vendors, property owners, and residents, actually states that Park Row is recommended to be open. Okay, so I also have a question is, there are so many residents, including the president of our community center, many organizations, and a lot of residents complaining about the bus island, especially the senior woman. And one time I tried to help a disabled man with wheelchair get on the bus. I saw the bus wheel popping up on the curb. Thank God I was alert and I backed off. So I think no matter how much we try to tell you guys, to do something about the bus island, and the best solution actually is please remove it. That was built with our taxpayer money, and we need it as a benefit. It's not helping the senior residents living around in Chinatown. There are more senior citizens traveling around, and it's dangerous for them. So I appreciate you guys will. I know people can make mistakes. It's okay if you guys could remove it or do something better. Look at this out there, Trader Joe. There is this bus on the Grand Street, okay? There are 2 bike lanes too, I saw, and there's a bus. But you guys did not build a bus island there. But instead, I have traveled a lot I used to live in Queens. I saw in Queens Boulevard how you guys build the bus lane, the bike lane.
Just 10 more seconds if you want DOT to respond to
I just want, over there, nobody built a bus island, but why try to build a bus island right in a neighborhood where there's so many senior citizens, and also Park Road is such a narrow strip of, you know what I'm saying? Why don't you just put it back of the regional? I really appreciate, you know, you guys are supposed to help the community, not to trying to kill us. Thank you.
Just to the point about the bus island, we know it's a very contentious item for the community. The reason for it being installed was to allow for southbound cyclists on Park Road to not have to be forced onto the sidewalk. Previous to the bus island being installed, the police barricades blocked the southbound roadway access, and cyclists were using the sidewalk on the north or the west side of Park Road to get around the infrastructure. So we built the bus island two-way path to extend the existing two-way path on the south side of Park Road up to the intersection. The bus island is built to full ADA standards per DOT standards. There's an accessible route at the north end of the bus route with a crosswalk. It meets all of our design standards, and it's very similar to other islands that have been installed citywide. We understand that it's a very contentious thing, and it will be included in part of the Chatham Square reorganization. That entire portion is under the project for full reconstruction and can be reconfigured as part of that project.
Thank you. Jeannie?
Thank you. I just want to address that about the bus island, that if you had designed the two bike lanes to go down the center, that would have left the sidewalk free for, and then the bikes can then go down past the toll booth. That would have not created a bus island. Okay, the security questions. I consulted a security expert, and he said boulevards are what's done all over the city and all over the world. One side of the Supreme Court has boulevards, and the other side does not. I mean, it does have it, but you're saying that is a big security risk. And where the underpass is, the security experts say you have to harden the underpass. So those are not things that are being considered for our neighborhood, whereas they're considered all over the world. Okay, now, the 2007 EIS study was heavily contested, and this is one of the reasons why the majority of the community rejected the Park Road reconfiguration and Chatham Square plan, and the LMDC's $50 million proposal, for example, was turned down. So the study incorrectly claimed that the closure didn't affect the businesses. So why are you relying on such flawed data? 24 businesses closed within the first year around Chatham Square, 24 of them. So I don't know why that study is so old and you're still using information from there. Regarding the west side of the street having buses, having no traffic, they do. When I came out of the building, there were 2 DOC buses idling outside on Park Road. So they are still using it as a staging area for events throughout the city. They want to have the DOC, Department of Correction buses there. You state that the network level modeling did not predict a major decrease.
Gee, we're at 2 minutes, so just I get another minute.
Okay. The fact that you're saying there's no traffic on work, no additional traffic on St. James, how come before the 9/11 there were no traffic, an army of traffic engineers? There are 2 now on St. James, and then there's one on Ward Street at the corner of Central Street. So a whole army of traffic engineers came into the neighborhood to direct the traffic after 9/11. So to say that there's no problem is really ridiculous.
To the security questions, I can't speak to that. That was under the purview of New York NYPD counterterrorism, so I can't address those questions. To the question about using the EIS data, so we used the existing data source from the EIS. We didn't use the findings of the EIS. And looking at all the studies that rebutted the EIS, those were all in regards to the findings, which we don't have any comment on.
Because we
were
really
only
needed
using
to see the, you're giving us all this new data. Why don't you give it to us as a handout so we could see and analyze it?
I mean, all these
20 seconds left of this discussion.
all this is posted online, so these presentations will be posted. It'll be publicly available on the comparisons after. But we only use the EIS as a reference. We actually didn't use it as a basis for our data. We used other data sources to start as well.
using the EIS? It's been almost 20 years.
It's the kind of only data source that had original pre-closure volume data in it that we could find. But we only used it as a reference. It was not actually used for the formulation of the actual estimated volumes. That was used other data sources.
Thank you. All right, and just a reminder for everyone here, we have to be out of the space at 9:30. We have 2 more agenda items on here. So I have 2 more folks online. I'm going to limit you all now to like just 2 minutes of speaking, 1 minute for back and forth with DOT, so 3 minutes in total. And I have Michelle. Hi, Michelle.
I live in Chatham Towers and I work in Chatham Square. I am wondering if in the future plans, the police plates and barriers are going to remain where they are. I believe a few years ago they were pushed out. I'm not sure if residents got things with them. It felt like rooms. And I just wanted to know if they're going to remain.
Michelle, we're having a hard time hearing you. I'm not sure if there's a way to fix your phone. I'm going to go to the next person here. We'll come back to you. But we're having a hard time hearing you, so I apologize. I'll come back to you. Could be. I hope not. Hi, Felix. If you could speak.
Hi, yeah, is that any better? Can you hear me okay?
Yes, actually, I think we hear you okay.
Okay, I just have a question about the bike lane. And first of all, it's great to see Park Row without the NYPD parking and all those cars. But now you have like a big open roadway with no blockages in it and a bike lane with a whole bunch of big concrete sugar cubes. And I was wondering if someone could explain to me what the purpose of those are and whether they're going to remain there, because with the parking gone, like they don't seem to stop anyone driving anywhere.
Great question. I think I haven't been out to the corridor recently, so I can't speak to its current existing conditions, but the plan is to move some of the security features that are on the west side to the east side to protect the bike lane. Typically, DOT protects bike lanes mostly through parking, so when the parking was removed, we looked to increase protection through other means, also as a way to discourage parking. So there may be additional features being relocated to fully separate the bike lane from the roadway. And I think some of the movement of those features is still ongoing, so there may be changes coming in the future or soon. I'm not for sure on the exact date when that's happening.
Yeah, so just to kind of add some extra detail to Casey's answer. So the existing security infrastructure on Park Row is being reorganized now to reflect the fact that PD parking has been removed. The intention then is to create a more buffered space for both cyclists and for pedestrians. And that work is actually set to continue next week, I understand. We're working with NYPD on the broader reorganization. We've had some issues because of the weather over the past few weeks, but the work is set to continue next week.
Great. Thank you, Felix. Anna, I'm going to go to you next. Hi, Anna.
Can you hear me?
We can.
Can you hear?
Yes, please
Oh,
speak.
okay. Sorry. Can the bus island be removed now that the reason for it will no longer apply? Because the answers to all 3 of the applications on the website do no longer apply. It says one application is a street with high curb
Anna,
demand.
Anna, we've talked about the bus stop island here, and I think DOT has responded. There's going to be other opportunities for the community. Do you have anything else, another topic that has been covered? And I'm just moving us along because we have other agenda items. Thank you.
Okay. Yes, I noticed that you did remove the 15 parking spots from Park Row, but they have expanded their pocket parking into the community. They are taking over parking, paid for parking spaces in Chinatown. How can we remedy that?
I'm not sure. Do we have anyone in here that could speak to placard vehicle parking? Can you actually expand, I know that the vehicles on Park Row, there were, east side, there were amount of spaces. It was the same amount of spaces put on the west side?
Yes.
So Anna, I think what we're,
It's a
sorry,
one
Gigi.
for one, it was a one for one relocation. So, you know, placard parking is an issue everywhere, but particularly in Lower Manhattan. So there was a commitment made to the city that NYPD would not move, the vehicles that were displaced from the east side of Park Row, that they would not be put into the community, so that we made sure it was a one for one swap.
What about the west side?
Yes, they are now parked on the west side,
But
where
we don't
there
want
is
them
no
doing that.
sidewalk, so it's not blocking anyone from walking. We moved planters that were in front of the detention center, where there is no sidewalk, and now they're all backed up there, primarily, and parked there.
So I was just gonna say, the problem does seem to be getting worse, but I don't think it's from Park Row. It is a problem in Lower Manhattan that we've been dealing with for a long time, and I think it's getting worse, but it's not necessarily because of Park Row.
All right, thank you, Anna. Michelle, let's hope that you improved. I'm gonna unmute you, and hopefully we can hear you better. Michelle, I think I accidentally put down your finger. Michelle, go ahead.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, much better. Thank you.
Okay. So I live in Chatham Towers. I have an office in Chatham Green. And I am wondering if the police barricades that have been moved over the last few years further out towards Chatham Square, will they remain where they are in any future plans? I'm not sure if the community was notified of when they moved, you know, in the last like, I don't know, 3 or 4 years. And it's really difficult to get anything through in Chatham Green now. When I get deliveries, it's so difficult because I have to go through layers of security.
Sorry, are you talking about the portable barricades, or are you talking about,
I'm talking about the police gates
the permanent
on Park
gates?
Row.
The permanent gates. Yeah,
Those are permanent?
those are
It's permanent
those are
now.
permanent. With the arm that goes up and down, yes, and the loop,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay.
Okay, Michelle, thanks. Okay, so thanks everyone for coming out tonight on this. And I guess I want to just, if EDC, could you just say again the dates the next time that the public can kind of go to those workshops and those again, and just a refresh. Sorry.
Sure. So the next public workshop is on Saturday, March 29th at PS1, right around the corner from Chatham Square, from 12 to 2 p.m. And that is kind of the next moment to both hear project updates and also give feedback on the Welcome Gateway design, this next phase where we're remapping Chatham Square, and also some potential additional improvements on Park Road.
And then there's a really nice, robust webpage where EDC has that posts information. So again, like some of the working groups that we see, like if that's posted afterwards that the public can look.
All decks are on Chinatown Connections.nyc, fully available for download, usually within 24 hours of any meeting, including the working group meetings.
Thank you.
At that working group meeting, when they talked about this March 29th workshop, they encouraged stakeholders at that meeting to reach out to their people to help promote. I mean, the EDC is doing it as well, but my thought is, would this be something that might be good to stick on CV3 social media?
that we would be open to doing that promotion.
We have a marketing team, but we'll also directly send you all the flyers. I think we'll have them possibly as early as tomorrow in English, Spanish, and Chinese, so we'll definitely be circulating that widely. Certainly to all our project partners, but also community-wide.
Okay, excellent, thank you. And for folks, we're going to move to our next agenda item here, which is transportation alternatives.